The year is 2026. The World Cup is far from over, and it has already given us its fair share of surprises, giant killings.
He does score! Germany are leaving a World Cup far too early again.
Breakout stars, nations exceeding every expectation. But perhaps the biggest surprise of all wasn't a team that overachieved, it was one that completely fell apart. If I showed you a squad with Federico Valverde, Darwin Núñez, Rodrigo Bentancur, Manuel Ugarte, Ronald Araujo, and told you they were coached by one of football's most respected tactical minds, you'd probably expect them to cruise into the knockout stage.
Uruguay is a nation that lives off identity and moments of brilliance. This is a transition generation. The ghosts of Suarez, Cavani, Godin are all gone, replaced by a modern, high-intensity, European-level core. And leading it all is one of the most extreme managers in football right now, Marcelo Bielsa. Uruguay might not be the most complete team, but they could be one of the more dangerous sides.
Instead, they left the tournament without winning a single game. Draws against Saudi Arabia and World Cup debutants Cabo Verde. A defeat to Spain when everything was on the line. 2 points from 3 matches. On paper, it simply doesn't make sense. So how does a team this talented collapse so completely? Most people will tell you the answer is Marcelo Bielsa. They're probably right, just not for the reasons you think.
¿Se está decepcionando? Sí, claro, pero tiene el peor técnico de la historia, ¿cómo no va a decepcionar?
¿Bielsa?
¿Y a quién le ganó Bielsa? Porque todos hablan de Bielsa, y vengo hablando con periodistas uruguayos de hace muchísimos años. ¿A quién le ganó? Lo que hace Bielsa es formar futbolistas. Sí, y lo hace bien, y todos los futbolistas hablan bien de él. Ahora, si hablamos de conjunto, y si hablamos de selecciones, y hablamos de equipos, hay que ganar. Uruguay es una selección para ganar, tiene una generación bárbara.
Habíamos tenido un intercambio de palabras con Marcelo, y bueno, se me minimizó enfrente a todo el grupo.
Uruguay Soccer Federation has canceled the charter flight, take players from their base camp in Mexico back to their capital city, Montevideo. Players have instead been left to take commercial flights either home or to vacations with their families.
But wait a minute, why penalize all the players? Isn't there a coach that's supposed to be motivating, setting strategy, and doing all this? Well, what's up with that?
Las constantes rispideces entre un plantel que no se veía respetado por el entrenador. Luis Suárez disparó sangrientamente contra Marcelo Bielsa, destacando que hasta no sabe lidiar con los jugadores de experiencia.
Fútbol, y todos sabemos que él no es de lidiar mucho con los supuestos líderes o jugadores con experiencia que no le gustan.
To understand why Uruguay's collapse shocked so many people, you first have to understand what Marcelo Bielsa represented when he arrived. Because Bielsa wasn't just another manager taking another national team job. He was Marcelo Bielsa, El Loco, the mad genius. A coach so obsessed with football that other managers didn't just respect him, they studied him. Pep Guardiola once called him one of the best coaches in the world.
My admiration for Marcelo Bielsa is huge. He helped me a lot from his advices. When I am able to speak with him, is always I feel he want to help me. So that means very important for me to say that about Marcelo, because it doesn't count how many titles he won in his career. Always we are judged about how many success we have, how many titles we won, and that is less, but less important about how he's influenced about the football, about his football players. That's why for me, it's the best coach in the world.
Mauricio Pochettino called him his football father.
He's one of the best managers in the world, and he's like my father in both ways, because he's 60 years old and can be my father and football father.
Diego Simeone learned from him.
Con Marcelo Bielsa, ¿cómo fue la experiencia? Veo que le agradeces mucho las enseñanzas tácticas, ¿no? Que
sí.
Era un hombre
yo creo que a nivel campo, Jorge, yo creo que de los entrenadores que mejor me han entrenado, con mucha claridad de concepto de lo que quería. Seguramente bien pragmático, bien
orientado hacia el siguiente partido.
Orientado hacia el siguiente partido y orientado a lo que él quería del equipo. Pero sobre todo mecanizado en una situación tan continua, que terminaba vos respondiéndole en el partido a esa situación sin darte cuenta.
Era como jugar de memoria, por decirlo de algún modo.
Exactamente. Yo creo que mecanizábamos tanto los movimientos de presión, tanto de... ¿Ves? Son una de las cosas que también me han quedado en el entrenador que tengo.
Across South America and Europe, Bielsa built a reputation as the kind of manager who could not only elevate a team, but completely change the way they thought about football.
The Spygate incident that rocked English football back in 2019, Marcelo Bielsa was involved at the heart of it. Accused of secretly watching opponents train, the Leeds boss faced national outrage. But instead of backing down, he doubled down, delivering a stunning 70-minute press conference revealing every meticulous detail of his scouting and tactical preparation. His message? Spying wasn't his edge. His obsession was. Leeds were finally fined £200,000, but Bielsa paid the fine out of his own pocket. He is a coach who never played at the highest level, yet his tactical ideas have shaped the way the modern game is played.
I can tell you that I observed all the rivals we played against, and we watched all the training sessions of the opponents before we played against them. I don't need to go to watch the training session of an opponent
para interpretarlo.
To know how the opponent plays.
¿Por qué voy?
Why do I go?
Porque no está prohibido.
Because it's not forbidden, and because even though this going and watching an opponent is not useful,
me tranquiliza hacerlo.
It allows me to keep my anxiety low.
His teams pressed higher, ran harder, attacked with more bravery, trained with more intensity, and for a country like Uruguay, that made sense. Uruguay have never been the biggest nation. They don't have the population of Brazil, Argentina, France, or England, but what they have always had is intensity, pride, aggression, a belief that football is not just something you play, but something you survive. So when Bielsa arrived in 2023, it felt like a perfect match, a demanding coach for a demanding football culture, and at first, it looked like exactly that. Uruguay started to look dangerous again. They beat Argentina, they beat Brazil, then they knocked Brazil out of the Copa America and finished third in the tournament. Suddenly, the story seemed obvious. Uruguay had found the man who could bring them back. The players were happy. The fans believed again. And Bielsa's methods, no matter how extreme, seemed justified by the results. Because in football, winning has a strange power. It makes people ignore the warning signs, and sometimes it delays the collapse instead of preventing it. Looking back, the warning signs were always there. They just didn't look like warning signs at the time. While Uruguay were winning, very few people questioned what was happening behind the scenes. In fact, there was only one person willing to do that. His name was Luis Suarez.
Suarez has lashed out at Bielsa and blamed the Argentine for Uruguay's current state of affairs.
I will ask the fans not to take it out on the players when things go wrong. Bielsa has divided the whole group because of the way he trains. The players will reach a limit, they'll explode. We all know that he doesn't like to deal with players with experience. I had to keep quiet out of respect for the national team and for the sake of coexistence.
Suarez feels it's the divide in the team that has led to their collective failure as a group.
Many of the players held a meeting to ask the coach to at least say good morning. He didn't even say hello.
Suarez cried out for help, but he was ignored.
I mean, is it that bad? I don't know. Some of the players seem okay with it. Some of the players don't. He is. I was listening to the guys that were at Leeds in England with him, the way they trained. It was just intense. Everything was intense. And that's how he is, and maybe that's just something that some of these senior players at Uruguay haven't been used to. But at the end of the day, is it not about playing well and getting results, and that's what Uruguay are doing at the moment.
This was one of the nation's greatest ever legends who had played for the national team under different coaches and alongside different players, so he knew when something was wrong, but no one was ready to pay attention to him. At the time, Uruguay were one of the most in-form national teams in the world, so as far as everyone was concerned, the means didn't matter as long as the end was good. It was only the second time in their entire history that they had hired a foreign coach, and it looked like the risk was already paying off. But the 2026 World Cup told a completely different tale. Draws against Saudi Arabia and debutantes Cabo Verde, and then a loss to Spain, meant that Uruguay finished with only 2 points and could not advance from their group.
Where I think Bielsa is most vulnerable, where he's most vulnerable, I think in our analysis, is establishing the emotional tone of the work that goes on. It clearly, no one denies this, it clearly all went wrong.
Because Uruguay were a disgrace. I thought from 20 minutes into the game, all they had was kick lumps out of Spain.
It was indeed a disgrace, but the signs were there before a ball was even kicked at this year's World Cup. In November 2025, Uruguay recorded one of the biggest losses in their history, and it came at the hands of the US men's national team. The South American Giants lost that game by 5-1 and left with a red card to boot. You see, it's one thing for Uruguay to lose to Argentina, France, or Brazil, but to lose like that to the USA, that sent off alarm bells. Worse still, it wasn't even the USA's first team. The whole nation was thrown into panic as they prepared for the World Cup, and, of course, all heads turned to one man.
5-1 loss to the U.S. men's national team last November. It led for calls for Marcelo Bielsa to be sacked, and that led to him defending his position. What is now going on surrounding Marcelo Bielsa still remaining at the helm of this Uruguay national team?
It seems that they are getting better. At least, like I said, they are calm. But this team is not even near what Marcelo Bielsa used to do with Argentina first and then Chile. The team doesn't have the flow, the dynamic usually you see in Marcelo Bielsa's team.
Fans called for his head, but the Football Federation decided to trust him and stick with him. And to be fair, results improved. The draw against England, in particular, did so much to help Bielsa earn back the support of many Uruguayans. But it wasn't long before he started to lose it again. Just about 2 weeks before kickoff of the 2026 World Cup, Marcelo Bielsa announced his final squad list for the tournament, and one big name was missing.
Luis Suarez, a national icon, a World Cup warrior, a man who carried Uruguay for over a decade, but he's not going to the 2026 World Cup. And the story behind it goes back to 2023. When Marcelo Bielsa arrived, Suarez was left out of his first squads. No explanation, no conversation, just silence. Suarez said Bielsa never spoke to me, admitting he felt hurt and disrespected. He said he had no idea why I wasn't called. Bielsa's response was cold and simple. Suarez was excluded for football reasons. That was the fracture, the moment the relationship cracked. But Suarez didn't walk away. He said recently, if Bielsa calls me, I'll be there. I want to help Uruguay in any way I can. He wanted the call, he waited for the call, but the call never came.
That singular decision divided a nation. Some were on the side of the coach, saying that Suarez was now old and finished and should indeed step aside for the younger generation. Others, though, felt that the legend deserved one last dance after everything he had given to the national team through the years. Suarez, to them, was like Messi to Argentina, Cristiano Ronaldo to Portugal, and Neymar to Brazil. And for them, his experience could really come in handy on the biggest stage. Bielsa claimed that it was a purely sporting decision and that he had no problems whatsoever with Suarez.
De hecho, yo no tengo ninguna diferencia con Suárez, pero opté por Darwin, por Viña y por Rodrigo Aguirre. No, en todas las decisiones que uno toma pueden constituir errores, pero son decisiones donde no me guía nada que no sea lo que considero que es mejor para la suerte deportiva del equipo.
Whether it was a football decision or something more personal, nobody outside that dressing room can say for certain, but Suarez had been super vocal about his issues with Bielsa's regime and very critical about his approach with the team from day one.
There were situations at the Copa America that hurt me, but I didn't say them for the sake of coexistence. Many players held a meeting to ask the coach to at least say good morning to us, but he didn't even say hello.
There was simply no way the striker was getting the call-up from the gaffer after all that. Now, Bielsa might have thought that he had taken out the divisive figure in the dressing room by leaving Suarez out of the World Cup squad, but soon the same issue arose.
Reunión de Bielsa con 4 jugadores que pidieron hablar con él. Sergio Rochet, Manuel Ugarte, Rodrigo Bentancur y Valverde. Pidieron una reunión, se sentaron con el técnico y la expresión, el concepto de lo que ellos le dijeron fue lo siguiente: no aguantamos esta forma de entrenar. Esta forma de entrenar nos cansa, hemos tenido mucha actividad, algunos han tenido lesiones, más, menos, otros han llegado sentidos acá. No aguantamos más esta forma de entrenar, queremos cambiar la forma de entrenar.
This was during the tournament. After a couple games, the captains were fed up with Bielsa's training methods and managerial approach, so they spoke up. How did Bielsa respond? He changed nothing, but not only did he not change anything, he punished the players that dared to speak. This is a man who doesn't like his authority being questioned, so in that game against Spain, he punished the senior players by taking them out of the game early. Muslera was taken off at halftime after his error, which led to the only goal of the game in the first half. And then the captain Valverde was taken off before the hour mark, even though Uruguay were desperately searching for a goal to stay alive in the tournament. But perhaps even more telling, when he walked towards the bench, he was totally ignored by the coach. And right at the end there, you could see Valverde cover his mouth as he directed some angry words towards the coaching staff. And according to rumours, things got even more heated and physical in the dressing room after full time. It was clear the team was in absolute chaos and the signs were there even before a ball was kicked. Even with everything on the line, Bielsa was still stuck in his ways. As such, you could say that Uruguay had pretty much already lost the game even before they stepped onto the pitch. In a World Cup where 3 teams could make it out of the group, Uruguay still failed to achieve that in a group where they were one of the 2 favourites. It was a total calamity, a disgrace. Immediately, questions started to be asked of the genius. At 70, are his ideas now outdated? Is he just too stubborn to make it in the modern game? Is it time to hang it up and say goodbye to the game he loves so much? And these were the same questions that were asked a few years ago by fans of Leeds United, where he was head coach.
We don't have enough quality in depth. If we leave Bielsa in charge, I think we're going to go down playing this style of football. We can't go down. It took us 16 years to get back into the Premier League. We cannot afford to go down.
Well, Danny, on our little green screen, it says that you think it's time for Bielsa to go. Do you genuinely think you'd get rid of him now?
I've seen managers sacked for less. I think it's time for him to go. There's other managers out there I think who could stabilise the team.
He was stubborn and insistent on his ways and refused to change or adapt.
Bielsa, and he is a top coach and he's had an unbelievable managerial career. It just didn't look like for me he had a plan B or a plan C. And I'm not going to question his managerial because he's managed at the top level. But what I will say, when you come to the Premier League, it's a different league, it's a demanding league. And probably Leeds are probably acted now thinking, we're in a relegation here, it's a big struggle. It's sad to see Bielsa go, but if you don't change, it was always going to happen. And he didn't want to change. He believed in his ways and he thought his ways were the right way.
Years later, the same problems persist. Fans talked, journalists made suggestions, even the players cried out, but Bielsa insisted on his own way. And now, it looks like that way was the road to destruction for the Uruguay national team. No doubt, the man is brilliant, idealistic, and very obsessed with the game. That obsession made him a top coach that even the greatest managers looked up to and learned from him.
There's a special relationship between Bielsa and Pep Guardiola, isn't there?
Yeah, they met in the house of Bielsa, and I spoke to Bielsa after the interview with Llorente, and I said, "What did you talk about?" And it was like, "Football," and they still talk for another 7 or 8 hours. That's the kind of characters they are.
My admiration for Marcelo Bielsa is huge. That's why for me it's the best coach in the world.
He's one of the best managers in the world, and he's like my father.
But it looks like that same obsession has led to his downfall. His refusal to evolve, to adapt, to consider his players has brought him to this point. In the beginning, he was the saviour. After Uruguay failed to make it out of the group at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, the entire nation looked to him to come in and save the day. And he started to do that at first. With his super intense style, he defeated Brazil, defeated Argentina, defeated Brazil again, won bronze at the Copa America. But the players' bodies just could not keep up, and they ended up burning out, with some even picking up injuries on the way. The captains went on to him to plead on the behalf of the players for the coach to take a different approach. He ignored them.
¡Vamos, Jiménez! ¡Vamos, Jiménez! ¡Vamos, Torreira! ¡Vamos, chicas! ¡Más rápido! ¡Muy buena! ¡Dale, dale! ¡Muévete el área! ¡Rápido!
Eventually, they crashed and burned. When it's all said and done, Marcelo Bielsa will remain a name etched forever into the memories of millions of football fans. In some stories, he is the hero. In others, he is the villain. He revolutionized the game and influenced some of the brightest minds in the sport, but at the same time, he destroyed teams and made nations weep. And that is just the conundrum of Marcelo Bielsa. He is a genius, but at the same time, he is also a madman.
Mire, lo que yo le dejo al fútbol uruguayo es nada, definirla, por lo cual si usted me pregunta cómo va a ser recordado mi paso, como un paso que no dejó nada.
But while you can blame Uruguay's downfall at this World Cup on the stubbornness and eccentricity of El Loco Bielsa, it was a completely different personality and approach that led to the destruction of France on the same stage 16 years ago in South Africa. Just like Uruguay this year, France left that World Cup with 0 wins and group stage embarrassment. And it was all because of one man. You want to know who that man is and how he brought a European giant to its knees? Click here and I'll tell you all about it.